Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wasallam. First of all, I would like to welcome Prof. Shad Faruqi. Not too far away, but now everything seems quite a distance away for everyone, I would assume.
Yes, indeed.
I would like to also welcome our other attendees who are part of our discussion today. At the moment, there's 34 attendees. We are expecting maybe this time slightly more than 50. I was informed yesterday based on the registration to the event, which is a good development from our side. We from Islamic Renaissance Front in particular, as this is our second webinar session. I think that most of our usual attendees to our event at IRF, we are more used to having face-to-face conversations, conferences and seminars where we can discuss and at times debate certain issues with having that sense of presence. Now things have changed. A lot of things have changed compared to the past few months ago. And I'm sure it's not just only affecting IRF, Islamic Renaissance Front as an organization, it's also affecting almost everyone, also including other activities, seminars, lectures as well. So to move forward with our discussion, once again, I would like to introduce myself first. I'm Ihsan from Islamic Renaissance Front, and this is our second webinar session during this movement control order phase. I think even for people with around my age, it is actually quite a new experience of having such control when it comes to our movements and interactions. I was talking to some of my friends who have more experience for over the past, let's say, 50 years. In some ways, it resembles the situation of control of many years ago. Perhaps Prof. Shad himself could share some inputs on that during his talk later. So for this talk event, again, we are co-organizing the webinar with the Islam and Liberty Network, also based in Kuala Lumpur. And just that one thing that we noticed, which is good in the sense of having a more online-based activities, our participations and registration of attendees for event tends to be a lot more, I would say, global, in the sense of we've got participants coming from Turkey, coming from, different countries, not only coming from Malaysia. So on that basis, I just want to point, for the sake of discussions, we will be mainly using English as our main communication. But for those attendees later during the Q&A part, you are welcome either to post questions, comments, either in English or in Bahasa Malaysia, which I can also translate to make it part of the discussion. For our topic today, this afternoon, is quite a rather straightforward topic. Just two main points: COVID-19 and rule of law. For those who took part or who attended our webinar session 2 weeks back, we had Dr. Nadir Hashimi as our speaker, which most of his elaboration explains about how does the situation of COVID-19 throughout the world is actually affecting different societies and different democracies and throughout the world, and how different countries and different societies respond to such situation with quite a variety of degree on retaining the important elements of democracy in the society, while at the same time facing and dealing with the challenge and the threat coming from the COVID-19 virus. Understanding that, and part of the main principles or foundation of democracy itself is also rule of law. So if we see this as part of a continuation of the discussion of last week and also into our discussion here today, perhaps with also focusing a bit more with the situation in Malaysia, where
Yes.
there's a lot of um, developments of the current time, which in some ways put the important topic and the important principle of rule of law into either considerations, some new questions, and how does this elements of rule of law could be retained in such a different setting compared to our usual normal. So of course, as part of the discussion on COVID-19, there's always the data and the numbers changes from time to time. Just I'm tracing into the current numbers globally. I'm referring to Al Jazeera news here, 154,000 deaths globally. And when it comes to cases, it's been keep on growing and growing from time to time. It's more than um, definitely it's more than 1 million cases for now.
More than 1 million,
And,
yes.
yeah. And in Malaysia itself, at the moment, there's already more than 5,000 cases, which all involved 86 deaths. But there's also positive notes to some of the comments, statements given by the health director, that the numbers looks like things are improving in some ways, looking into the past few days. So at least there's some sense of optimism that we can look into the situation. But still, we are far from whatever that we can say about the life of normality. As if now there's some comments in news channels and views from some scholars even suggest that post COVID-19, meaning to say when the actual threats could perhaps be more relaxed and be it's no longer so much of a threat, things may not eventually turn out to be normal as it was normal before the start of the global crisis on this topic. And that brings us to this important topic about rule of law. As in general, when it comes to the discussion of rule of law itself, we could also sense rule of law is also in some ways has its relation with history, either in a nation or even globally. There's also some progressions and changes to rule of law from time to time when it comes to what types of law and how the law are being implemented in certain time. And few months before, there is no movement controls or lockdown. It is just, I think in the case of Malaysia, it was only in mid of March that we started the movement control and the social distancing announcement or advice, or maybe what is being mentioned by what is being stated by the government. And that definitely affects, it's not just about affecting the just general normal activities, but also affects businesses, affects administration of governments, and also a lot of other matters. And also on another important, interesting note to look into the effect of the movement control order is how it also kind of affects the usual life of the practices of communities of religion. And that is an interesting point for the past several weeks, almost more than a month. The norm of not going to Friday prayers, that is already being seen as the right way compared to things before. And for Muslim communities, we tend to adapt this. And in the coming week, when Ramadan comes, that will also be some Ramadan, I would say, which might be different compared to the past Ramadans that most of that Muslim have observed and practiced before, showing that the dynamics or the relations between cultural and religious practices is also in some ways being either affected or also is also being negotiated with the situation on the ground and the rules of the authority and the situation or the rule of law at the current time that we are in now. So within that brief discussion about how does rule of law is in some ways related to the situation of the COVID-19 crisis or the virus threat that we are facing in Malaysia, definitely, and also in other parts of the world. It is best for us to get to listen or to have some more inputs from an established scholar of law in definitely in Malaysia, but also very much well known. I'll just start with giving a brief introduction about Professor Dr. Haji Shad Saleem Faruqi. Emeritus Prof. Shad Saleem Faruqi was the holder of the Tunku Abdul Rahman Chair at the Faculty of Law, University of Malaya. He is currently the holder of the Tun Hussein On Chair at the Institute of International and Strategic Studies Malaysia, ISIS, a member of the Judicial Appointments Commission, a fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, a former member of the Post-General Election GE14 Institutional Reform Committee, and the MA63 Committee. He is an emeritus professor of law at University Technology Mara Shah Alam as well. He has also served as a visiting professor at University Science Malaysia Penang, as associate professor at University Islam, the International University, Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM, and an adjunct professor at New England University, Australia. He's the author of 10 books, including Documents of Destiny, The Constitution of the Federation of Malaysia, Reflections on Life and the Law, Media Law and Regulations in Malaysia, and Our Constitution. In 4.5 decades in the law, he has authored more than 600 articles in journals, periodicals, and newspapers. He has done many national and international consultancies, including the drafting of the Constitution of the Republic of Maldives in 1992. So I think without further inputs from me for now, I think I will, if you are already ready to give your brief presentation, Prof. Shad.
Yes,
are you ready to
I'm
go?
ready. Yes.
All right. So I think without further delay, I will straight ahead invite Prof. Shad to share his input. To you, Prof. Shad. Thank you very much.